sure know where I've been, hanging on the promises and songs of yesterday. And I've made up my mind, I ain't wasting no more time. Here I go again, here I go again. Though I keep searching for an answer, I never seem to find what I'm looking for. Lord, I pray you give me strength to carry on, 'cause I know what it means to walk along the lonely street of dreams. Here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone, and I've made up my mind. I ain't wasting no more time. I'm just another heart in need of rescue, waiting on love's sweet charity. And I'm gonna hold on for the rest of my days, 'cause I know what it means to walk along the lonely street of dreams. And here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone, and I've made up my mind. I ain't wasting no more time, but here I go again. Here I go again. Here I go again. Here I go. Cause I know what it means to walk along the lonely street of dreams. And here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone, and I've made up my mind. I ain't wasting no more time. And here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone, 'cause I know what it means to walk along the lonely street of dreams. And here I go again on my own, going down the only road I've ever known.
Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way. Don't ask for all your things back, cussing out my name, yeah, just to go and take back what you say. Burn all the bridges, don't ask forgiveness, walk away like I'm someone you hate. Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way.
If it's over, so fuck it. Just don't act like my love wasn't nothing. Like I wasn't the one you was holding that night, telling all of your secrets and hugging. Guess you right, it's too good to be true. Was a point, all I needed was you. But shit, time after time, I just fussing and fighting. It's time that you do what you do. And it's cool. Mama said it was fish in the sea, I got lost in the pool. Knew it was coming, I watched how you move, how you turn your back on me and leave me to lose. Remember the text, how you said that you do. Said that you never leave, we would fight till it's due. But as it went on, I was fighting for you. Since the text turned green, why the fuck it ain't blue? Guess you done and I get it. Said you stay and you wanted my name and you left, so I'm guessing that you never meant it. Said you try and hold on cause the love was so strong, now I'm standing alone in this kitchen. Singing sad songs, but I'm knowing that this shit don't last long. If you leaving, then leave cause your bag's gone. But just know you can never come back home.
Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way. Don't ask for all your things back, cussing out my name, yeah, just to go and take back what you say. Burn all the bridges, don't ask forgiveness. Walk away like I'm someone you hate. Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way.
If you say that you done it, no take back. Said you fell out of love and I hate that. But see me, I was stuck like a drug, really feeling for love and somehow I can't shake back. When you walked out that door, I was hurting. All the dreams in my head, you was perfect. You remember the very first time that we killed and I reached for your hand where the nerves at. Time to pass, but shit, that's what it do. It be times I be sick sitting thinking about you. It was death do its part. You gave me the blue, really played with my heart. Left me lost in confused. Like this shit was fair game, but you made up the rules. On my heart, left a scar and a bruise. Hope that you can stand on all the shit that you did. Cause I'm done, y'all finally through.
Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way. Don't ask for all your things back, cussing out my name, yeah, just to go and take back what you say. Burn all the bridges, don't ask forgiveness. Walk away like I'm someone you hate. Don't let me down easy. If you're gonna leave me, baby, go and leave me all the way.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once? I am one of those melodramatic fools, neurotic to the bone, no doubt about it. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Am I just stuck? I went to a shrink to analyze my dreams. She says it's like a sex that's bringing me down. I went to a whore. He said my life's a bore. Choke with my white cause it's bringing her down. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Grasping to control, so I better hold on. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm cracking up. Am I just paranoid? Like a son?
Point in time over the last few years where our attrition, our turnover rate for security staff was 60%.
If I want to pretend I'm Joe Doe and take your image, your face, your video, your voice, and I want to replicate that, I want to be able to authenticate that and say, hey, this isn't Joe speaking to me. There's got to be something off there.
Everyone has a part in the security and safety of all of our guests and employees. And it doesn't stop just if security is in your title.
You guys communicate and have synergy with security and surveillance and cyber and even marketing and player development. And for so long, Joe, those departments were sideload departments.
I'm going to pull your heart out of your chest and shove it down your throat. Smoke them and then hit them over the head with it. Whatever you have to do, you have to have that kind of mentality.
If there's a way out, get the fuck out.
Yep. If people paid attention more, there'd be less victims who probably wouldn't have been a victim if they would have been eyes up.
If you want to learn how to truly protect yourself and how to secure yourself, you should learn from someone who does it for a living or someone who has gotten away with it.
You'd be surprised how well you'll do if you just fight for your life.
All right, welcome everyone to SVIP Live. My name is Taylor May, the founder of Security VIP, SVIP for short. I'm excited because we're back with another great guest, great former end user on this series. Just as a reminder, SVIP Live is all about highlighting end users in the security industry, and this gentleman is a former end user and also a great friend of mine. I met him couple years ago. But before I make this introduction of who this guy is, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors today, Serverly. Go check them out. They have a QR code here on the screen here. You guys can check them out. I want to give a shout out to Serverly for sponsoring this discussion. But guys and girls, I'm excited to introduce you to Mr. Brand Elverston. Now, for you people who do not know who Brand is, well, I will just say this in a nutshell. This guy is a retail guru, retail expert. He spent over 20 years at the world's largest retailer, Wally World, Walmart, and now he owns his own business, which is awesome. He actually consults, Elverston Consulting. Check that company out. But Brand is a unique individual. Not only does he have loads of experience in retail, he is a veteran. I know we just celebrated Happy Memorial Day not too long ago, so I always like to give a shout out to my veterans. Brand's a veteran, but he's also an author too. He's written a couple incredible books. One of them is Proclivity, so go check that out. But Brand, I could talk about you all day myself, my friend, but I want to first welcome to SVIP Live. How are you doing?
I'm good, man, and I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you. It's been a minute.
It has been a minute. I think the only thing I do not like about you is you're a Alabama alum, so
yes,
the Roll Tide.
Proudly. Yes, even still, even without Saban, it's still going to be, the standards are pretty damn high down there, as you can imagine, and it's a pretty unforgiving environment. So we'll see how it plays out. He's had one season, got to get his shit together in a few ways.
Man, I can't imagine playing. I mean, obviously, I kind of miss it because obviously I didn't play in the era of being NIL era, so I didn't get all the money that they do now. But I can't imagine coaching in that environment because, kids don't have a sense of commitment, I think, anymore. It's all about name, image, and likeness.
Well,
how much you're going to pay me.
You just stole the narrative from Nick Saban. That was one of his most expressed frustrations and why he retired. He's like, these kids are not in it for professional development and career opportunity post-graduation and all the things that make young men.
Right.
He said, yeah, it is the money. So he said, if they get tired of your shit and, OSU or somebody offers you $1 million more, go. And so, yeah, it's taken, in my mind, it's taken the spirit and purpose out of college athletics. Not that this is about nil, but that's my opinion. I just think there's nothing to be gained from that.
I agree with you, man. As a former player, I mean, obviously, I miss out all that money, but at the same time, it's employee. You
wouldn't be doing this shit if you'd have been a nil guy.
Well, exactly. But it's a pay to play environment now. Yeah. Who's going to pay me the most? Who's going to guarantee me, amount of reps, etc. So we could talk about football for a whole hour, but I do want to give my listeners some context about the next 50 to 60 minutes here with Brand. Again, guys and girls, Brand is former Walmart Director of Asset Protection, over 22 years with Walmart. He now consults in the retail industry. We'll talk about a little bit kind of what you're doing today, Brand. But for my listeners, just any more context about your experience and background before we kind of dive into the retail sector?
Yeah, I mean, it all fits. So I'm a veteran, as you said, 12 years active duty. I was a field artillery officer before and after the wall came down. I was in command in Europe, both sides of the fence, meaning before and after the wall, not, on the east side. And, it was really then, Taylor, that began to shape and further define my purpose as a leader. So during the Cold War, yeah, Fort Knox, Kentucky, everything was cool. We had one enemy, forces were united. And then when I got over to Germany, it's just a very intense environment. So any of the listeners that are veterans that served during the Cold War, particularly those that served before the wall came down, it was intense. And the expectations were necessarily very high. Not only conduct and performance of officers and the ability to execute, but also of our soldiers, non-commissioned officers. So it was an awesome period in my professional life. If anybody ever asks me, what are you most proud of? Most people will say Humpty Hump at Walmart. I'm like, not even close. The pride and privilege of being able to serve in America's armed forces and be an officer leading combat soldiers, nothing will ever eclipse that. So 22 years at Walmart, I got my MBA right before I got out of the Army. My last duty station was the senior officer instructor in the gunnery department over the MLRS, multiple launch rocket systems that are doing so well in Ukraine right now. That is my division. And decided, that was the first assignment I had that I wasn't in a command leadership position. And what that means is, and again, the veterans here, this is something they're used to. That was really my first experience, as strange as it sounds, with the civilian world. When I got to Fort Sill and I was not in command and we're not doing alerts and we're not, up at 05 rucking or running 5 miles, all that intensity was gone. It was 8 to 4. It was teaching. That's it. So I was able to take in and entertain the possibility, if you will, of a different career path, because command is where that was nirvana for me. As I always say, it's the toughest and most demanding job you'll ever love. And during the drawdown, so I know you're too young to remember this, but this was in the late 80s and early 90s. You weren't even in diapers yet, I don't think.
92, Brand. 92 was I born.
Well, I came back to the States in 92. I just finished my second command, and understanding where the train was going in the drawdown and the opportunity to command a battalion and upwards was increasingly more unlikely, because there's a finite number of commands and then you've got all these officers. I was commissioned in the Reagan era when the forces were being built up. So we had this huge group of officers and these many commands. And I was ready to do something different. So I got the MBA, didn't know a damn thing outside of that textbook in business. I didn't know the difference between cost and retail. I knew nothing. I mean, I could do weighted average cost of capital formulas and future value of money all day long, but practically in a real environment, I didn't have that. So long about 94, started interviewing with companies that we did case studies on. One of them was Walmart. And in 94, Walmart was not the beast it is today. In fact, I'm not even really sure I knew who the hell Walmart was. But we had done a lot of business case studies on them because they were good at what they were doing. So I'm like, well, shit, I'll apply to them. And just a lot of luck came to bear. The right guy saw my resume, because back then in 94, even though Sam Walton was a veteran, veterans were not heavily sought after. In fact, in the asset protection loss prevention division at the time, it was almost frowned upon, as in he's too strict. He doesn't understand how to, pivot. He doesn't, which is of course absurd, or a better word is bullshit. if anybody can pivot on nothing, it's a veteran. So anyway, the right guy got the resume, saw it. Long story short, got hired. Was in upstate New York for about 11 months, and then got the opportunity to come back to the home office and create what is now 100 odd strong staff that do everything on the analytics, emerging technologies, training, merchandise protection, safety, all kinds of shit. And I did that until 2017. And I got the feeling that people told me you got to wait for. It's kind of like being told, how do I know I'm in love? Well, you'll know it when it happens. Well, I got that gut feel in me about a year before I retired that, you know what, I think this movie's over. It's been a great ride, but I have no aspiration to be a vice president. I have no aspiration to, be a buyer, anything. I'm like, I've done what I came to do. And while I'm still young, I want to exercise entrepreneurial freedom and do my own thing. And I was been very fortunate, as you know, Taylor. So the risk of, retiring and then consulting not working out and being like, oh shit, now I got to move under a bridge and work at McDonald's. I was prepared, and it's been nirvana since in consulting. That was March of 17. So it's been awesome. That's where you and I met.
Yeah, no, I mean, and like I said, I think we talk about this correlation sometimes from veterans going into civilian life. Sometimes it's maybe difficult for veterans to really accept the new reality of civilian life, but it seems like
Yep.
you adopted that well. And I think, Brand, what's unique about you, man, is the 20 or so years at Walmart is beneficial for what you're doing now, because you've
Oh,
seen
absolutely.
a bunch of shit, right? And that only adds more credibility to the manufacturers or emerging technology companies that you consult for, and say, hey, look, I've been in those shoes before. I know exactly what's working, what's not working, or what is the coming down the line
Yep.
when it comes to ORC and asset protection. So it skilled you for where you are today in your current role.
Yeah, I was what they call now, I think, chief of staff for years in the asset protection division. So that's the number two over the staff under the VP. So I worked directly for, I don't know, 6, 7 VPs. It was an awesome ride, but then there were some structural changes, and it was a Friday afternoon, and I knew layoffs were going, and so I was kind of mentally prepared. And my boss called me in, had a folder on the table, so you know what it's about. Well, in my case, it could have been something from HR, but it wasn't. But he's like, "Hey, your position's going away, XYZ. You've been asked by the then executive vice president of store ops to create a team. It was called the Surge team, to go out and assess levels of execution on critical company programs, very little of which is asset protection. So it's inventory management, it's cash office conversions, receiving process, all those operational things that are critical to profitability. And we had about 5% that we looked at was AP crap, because that isn't the hard part. And I looked at him and I'm like, you got to be shitting me. 20 years in the saddle here, and you want me to go be a fucking auditor? And and I had a good relationship with this guy, and he laughs at, hey, Brand, you know how this goes. I'm like, all right, I want till Monday to decide. And a familiar name to you, Mike Lamb, he was my VP at the time.
Yep.
So I'm coming down out of the conference room down the hallway, and Mike Lamb is standing down near his office like, hey, come here. And I'm like, all right. And so I go in his office, he closes the door, and he said, well, what's your decision? And I'm like, you know what, Mike, I'm going to think about it. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about, Brand? You've never done or been in a better position within Walmart leadership's eyes than now. How can you do that and say no and walk? And I'm like, Mike, I have no aspiration. I don't need an AMG in the garage. I don't need a new bass boat. I'm not looking at a 10,000 square foot house. I know when the movie credits are coming. And for me professionally, I'm getting really close. So anyway, over the weekend, I came home. Of course, my wife is like, are you smoking crack? It scared the shit out of her. So we had to work through that emotion. And
God love her.
yeah, well, she's my partner for 30 plus years. So she's usually right. Anyway, I thought about it, and without going into a lot of detail, I had some professional debts to pay. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, you know what? It's time for me to do just like when I got the recall orders for Afghanistan. It's the last fucking thing I wanted to do, come back off civilian status and suit up again and go back into that. But that's what I committed to do. So I had those debts to repay. So I went back in Monday morning and said, I'll do it. And to your exact point, dude, it was the best possible last gig I could have had to prepare me for what I do today, because it was a total detailed reimmersion in everything in store operations. Had I not had that, I wouldn't be as fluent in a lot of the factors now that even today, a lot of people are like, what? So the inventory management, the mechanics, not just, buying shit, receiving it and selling it. It is, the in-stock position, the things that are pressure points you read in media today in retail. I was very well versed, and it was completely refreshed, and it sure as hell didn't hurt that it was at the world's biggest. So
Yeah.
I spent for 18 months, we did the math, it was almost 75% of the weeks we were out 2 or more nights a week. So it sucked. And we were in stores, totally in stores. It sucked, but you read my first book. It's the proclivity. It's those kinds of things that look like a shit sandwich when you first look at it, but it turns out to be a bowl of ice cream when you do it. That was that last job. So, and it's still paying benefits to this day. It's awesome.
Brand, I'm going to ask you this, man. And before I ask you it, I want to remind our guests, people listening, if you have a question for Brand, please drop a comment. We will highlight questions or comments for Brand. I encourage my listeners to always ask questions during these live interviews. So if you have a question, please drop it. Brand, my question for you, man, everyone knows Walmart, but do you feel like these tier ones, I mean, everyone talks about shrink, everyone talks about workplace safety. I know shrink is so, I personally, I fucking hate the word now because it's so fucking overly abused. And you put out a post today about Walgreens with shrink being like the only contributing, or they're like one of the few retailers that actually contributed. One of the challenges is shrink, which is unique, because shrink is always a common challenge. But I guess my main question I'm going to ask you, Brand, is do you feel like Walmart is the most difficult retailer or tier one retailer to protect and secure for asset protection or ORC or crime, or do you think that's the biggest challenge, or is there another retailer out there that has more adversity to go through when it comes to safety and security?
I think number one, and this is through first person conversations with all of the tier one VPs, because the RELA conference was, I don't know, a month ago, 6 weeks ago in DC. Safety is number one on everybody's ticket. I don't give a damn if you're Freddy's fruit stand or you're Walmart. Safety is a problem. And that includes your and my first engagement, active shooters, the threat of, mass violence, the threat of making an apprehension on a shoplifting incident and getting stabbed or shot in the process trying to recover a damn TV. So no, that is throughout all of retail, number one priority. To your question, is it more difficult? It's not. Where it gets really difficult is in those stores that have classic anemic staffing. So think about a Dollar General. You go into Dollar General, you're lucky if there's 2 people in that store that work there. So it's a thieves' haven. Same thing at Walgreens, CVS, a little less so Best Buy. Mass retail, everybody went through COVID. If they're still here today, they made it. And what they found out is during the reduced staffing that necessarily had to happen, or they were repurposed to wipe shit down or count people at the door or whatever, the finance turds are salivating, looking at, wait a minute, we survived and we cut, $700 trillion out of payroll. I don't need to go back to that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the ones that have no path back to that are the ones that are suffering the most. Because again, thieves love absence of payroll on the sales floor. So Walgreens, again, the quarterly reports, guys, is what Taylor's referencing. Of all the majors that had quarterly earnings come out, Walgreens was the only one that mentioned shrink still being a challenge. Everybody else either didn't mention it, or in one case, I can't remember the retailer, had a 68 basis point improvement year over year. So I mean, we could probably fill another hour as to why that is, but shrink is coming down across the board for several key reasons, and it is not because crooks all of a sudden found the Lord and they changed their ways, because crooks have been crooks forever.
Right.
It's more than theft, way more. So, you know, no, to answer your question, it's not more difficult at Walmart than it is
Well,
at Target or anywhere else.
Well, I agree. I think crime's never going to go away. I think there'll be ebbs and flows of when it's going to peak, just like it always does. And typically in the holiday season, we see crime typically peak.
Yeah.
But it brings up another good point. Obviously, safety is a big concern with every retailer.
Huge.
Same with other industries too, Brand. But not just safety for guests and customers, but their own employees, right? They want to
Oh, yeah.
increase attrition, or have the retention rate stay increase attrition. But I do want to bring this up, Brand. You know my wife Kate, and she actually she just commented, so I'm going to share this comment with everyone. And this is kind of a personal story, so I'm happy sharing this to everyone. But my wife here, Kate, says, I personally have experienced being followed in Walmart and know many other women have as well. Is this a problem that's being addressed in retail? If so, how? Do you expect that it will get better or worse? Now, Brand, I'm going to elaborate a little bit what my wife is saying. She called me when she was being she felt like followed. I know she was being followed, but she was pregnant with our son. Obviously, we had our son a couple weeks ago, but she was pregnant with our son, and she was carrying my almost 2-year-old toddler with her. So in the eyes of a nefarious actor, when they see a pregnant female carrying a toddler, what does that tell that nefarious actor? Oh, it's going to take her longer to load up the car with groceries, get the kids in the car. There's my window of opportunity to take advantage of her. So I guess, Brand, my question is, as if she's not carrying a weapon, she doesn't have any training, what advice do you have as an expert for females, especially like my wife, who feel like they're being followed inside of stores like a Walmart?
So let's clarify, not being followed by an employee who thinks she's a thief. She's being stalked by somebody that she's really feeling uncomfortable with.
Bad actor, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Completely different. I was headed the other way. Easy answer to that is, if what I would do, and no, I have no specific information to say that's an increasing problem, but I'm also got enough years in the saddle and a lot of time at the Emergency Operations Center, and this is really no different in any retailer. Crazy stuff happens, broad daylight. It just disproportionately, it seems, the media attention is on Walmart. I mean, they have 4,700 stores.
Easy target, yeah.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Right.
And so if I were in her shoes, I would find an associate and ask somebody to help escort them out of the store. And they do that in some of the tougher markets. Store management, the asset protection people, they do that. Now, none of them are armed. So, if they're looking for a gunfight, it's going to be one way. But the counsel is I wouldn't leave the store. And when my wife goes to the store at night, only because I know all the crazy things that have happened over the years, I don't like that. I'm like, honey, please, let's go during the day. But she parks under, the parking lot, well lit, close to the front door. But I also know there's only so much you can do. If somebody's hell bent on doing something, it's going to happen. So, yeah.
No, that's good. Good advice. I want to go back to your earlier point, because that's a great point to bring up. So what if it's the alternative, Brand? What if it's an actual associate following my wife inside of a store? What's the counsel there?
I probably shouldn't say this, but I'd confront them. So is there something I can help you with? Because if they have malicious intent, which I'm not going to say it never happens, but shit happens. It's immediately disarming. It's no different than if you're in the store shoplifting and somebody says, hey, dude, walk this way, the game is up. But if it's some other intent, you at least let them know that I know you're following me and I'm uncomfortable with it, and I'm going to go find the store manager or, some other person there that hopefully has got a better answer than walking around the store with me. But I haven't. And you know me, Taylor, it's like I never left Walmart in a lot of cases. I'm over there a lot. I was over there last week at the home office, that is. So, and tons of my friends are still there. So it's not uncommon at all for me to hear stuff, but I haven't heard that as being a challenge. It's the security of customers we talked about earlier and associates. An active shooter is a headline for every retailer, that threat. Because there's only so much you can do with that. If some crack addict has got an AK and he's hell bent on killing people, it's going to happen.
Well, I mean, one of the big issues, Brad, with retail, and the same thing in the casino environment, is you guys are just open. You guys are very, very
Yeah,
open. It's an open campus feel. Even at universities, man, they're open campuses. So when it comes to an active aggressor and active shooter, I wouldn't say there's a great. I mean, there's obviously technology out there, which I know you promote weapon detection technology, which is great.
sure.
But you can only have so many bodies on the ground, so much
Yeah,
technology in hand to really be
yep.
proactive sometimes. So. I agree. The active aggressor, active shooter problem is still an issue in the physical security world. The other issue, Brand, that I've seen, and I know not too much up my expertise or your expertise, is obviously deep fake technology, cyber security threats when it comes to
Mhm.
impersonation of employees or parents. We've seen
Yep.
that a big issue. If I want to pretend I'm Brand Elverston, I'll take your face, your voice, your image, and I'll try to replicate exactly who you are to gain access to personal information. So maybe that's an issue at Walmart, like when you shop online or something. When people shop online, they're trying to do fraud attempts, and I know
Mhm.
there's technology now. What I'm trying to say that helps solve that, which is actually pretty cool. I found about a technology that helps solve deep fakes, but that's another challenge I've seen around security, Brand, just the digital world about threats in retail.
Yeah, in the specific case of Walmart, it's Target's another one, uh, and Lowe's. They have pretty robust investigative teams that work on all, that are separate e-commerce investigators. And these guys, um, many of them are former law enforcement or former feds. So former FBI agents, CIA, three-letter agency, whatever, and they know what the hell they're doing. If you took me and plopped me in the middle of the cyber fraud unit, dude, I'd be I'd be completely lost. I was going to use another metaphor, but it's not appropriate here. Um, I'd be lost as Hogan's goat, dude, because that's just not a space I grew up in.
Right.
But the threats are very real, can be very damaging, and I don't know a single retailer that doesn't hedge against that effectively. I don't know another retailer that's really got their ass in the wind on that. They all do a pretty robust job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just a topic of conversation. And I
Yeah.
think what I've seen now in the security world is the intersection of cyber and physical coming together now. So you've got
Yep.
physical security manufacturers that now prioritize cybersecurity a part of their offering. So there's
Yep.
some reassurance there that these two worlds are colliding now and not just being siloed departments, which is obviously ideal. In today's landscape. Going back to my wife's story, I saw a video, Brand, just before we went live on TikTok. I believe his name is Scott Dreisen. He was a former Secret Service agent, but he gave some good advice about when you're shopping alone and you have a shopping cart full of, whatever merchandise. You go to your car, you kind of create a box around your car where the car that you're sitting next to or you got the door open, jammed to the door, you get the shopping cart in front of you, but it's like a box essentially, and you can see obviously what's in front of you versus having your back turned, loading
Yep.
up the car. I mean, I thought that was a great piece of advice because a lot of mamas would be great, especially for my wife when they're loading up, the car.
Yeah. Yeah. The defensive, it's a shame that you even have to entertain that, but
Yeah.
here we are. Um, yeah. It's almost for a retailer, and thanks to the lawyers and, the environment we live in, there's only so much you can share. Because at a point, if you say, hand out pamphlets, for example, in the store, if I'm in South Philly, which is a tough area, and I hand out pamphlets for personal safety while shopping at Target. Well, if something goes south and they did what was on the pamphlet, then now you're writing, a 12-figure check for them.
Right.
So while there are reasonable precautions that they do, it's it's almost a double-edged sword for the retailer because of the liability. It's the same thing that you go through in your profession is, if a retailer elects not to implement a certain technology that's designed to do X and they have an incident that had they had that technology, it probably would have prevented it. it would have been great to have it, but unless you have it in all stores, you fall victim to
Yep.
duty of care, where some sleazy lawyer that got his mail order degree sues you because, well, dude, you put the technology in the Minneapolis store, but you didn't put it in, 10 miles down the road. So therefore you're negligent because you obviously knew it was a problem or you wouldn't have put the technology in that store. And I learned about that early in my Walmart career back in the late 90s with parking lot patrols. So, one thing I'll mention, only because I'll probably forget, is an article that'll come out. I don't know, next few weeks, June. The theme of it is what's changed in the AP industry. Part of the theme, and the answer to that is no longer are leaders in retail, any security branch, hamstrung by the lack of technologies and solutions that are sophisticated. It is a choice if you walk into Walgreens and everything's locked up, just like
Yep.
it was in 1970. Nothing has changed in that shopping environment, and it's a one-trick pony solution for perceived theft problems, be they real or perceived. So I think, probably about 20, I'd peg it at probably 2018, 2019, certainly. Computer vision, RFID, there are much better solutions out there. So what I'm leading into is that duty of care at some point is going to raise its ugly head. Because if I'm a slick lawyer and I went to Harvard law degree or Princeton, that duty of care now takes on a new meaning because it's not a desert out there for advanced solutions in computer vision. I mean, I could name I could name a dozen vendors off the top of my head that provide SaaS solutions, existing cameras, throw a server in the store, hit the switch, and you're off to the races. So back to our opening comments on safety, I think that's going to cause the safety experts in retail to say, you know what, it ain't 1970 anymore. We have a duty of care responsibility, and the technologies are available to help us prevent that. So if your wife is out at the car and she's within camera view, and it's obvious there's an altercation, cameras can do behavior analysis. That's not a big deal. Instantly report through rapid SOS or whatever you want. You could automatically notify the PD, and before you know it, you got a SWAT team and the guy's on the ground with a taser in his nuts. It's reality now. So that's encouraging to see. But the frustrating part is when you walk in stores and it looks like 1970. I'm like, dude, that tells me where the leadership head is.
Well, I think no, you're right. And we talk about this mandate too, allowing technology. I think everyone can agree that every single commercial building you walk into that has some kind of fire code already put in the system. And the reason why they put fire code in there, Brand, is because buildings used to burn down. But that's a mandate. You build a new building, you have to have fire sprinkler system. So we are here in 2025, where to your point, there's a half dozen plus fully baked emerging technology companies that have true ROI that are already proven in certain environments like retailers and casinos. And why wouldn't that be a mandate now inside of a store, right? And I think that's a good point. And I do want to pick, we had a comment come in, Brad. I want to highlight this quick to your earlier point from Josh Bowman. He says, I agree that confrontation is jarring and ineffective. They look for easy targets, in my opinion, and don't want to fight. Why do we not hear more advice to do that? Liability? ?
Yes.
100% liability.
Well, I'm not going to say 100%, but I can hear my former chief counsel at Walmart, his voice, and he was an awesome guy. He was the real deal, and he'd tell you, it's counterintuitive. It makes no sense. Like, common sense is to throat punch the son of a bitch and then do X, Y, and Z. And next thing you know, you're in a courtroom and you're writing the big check. So there's a reasonable expectation of safety when Taylor May's wife goes into a store. There's a reasonable expectation you're not going to be assaulted, shot, or killed. I mean, come on. But beyond that, it gets really sticky really quick, and then it can increase the exposure of the retailer or the casino or whatever entity you're in.
Well, that's my point too, Brandon. And same with education and school district. It's all about ratings, right? They
Yeah.
rely on those ratings so they can have kids come to their school. And the same thing applies to casinos and retailers. If you see a horrible review or you see crime at a certain store, the obligation of someone spending money at that store or that casino is pretty low if they see a lot of high
Mhm.
crime rate. So I think there's a fine balance there between obviously keeping safety and security a high element, but also making sure that your own employees feel safe to go work there, right?
Yep.
You know, so that's
100%.
that fine balance. But again, to my point, 2025, man, there's so many great technology companies and solutions out there that can help
Yeah.
make this process easier. Not saying it will solve the issue. I think you need a handhold between the human and the technology aspect. But there's a lot more
Sure.
fully baked products out there, man, that are relevant. And I want to point to that, Brand. Obviously, you consult for some of these emerging technology companies. Before I ask you this question, again, I want to remind my audience, you have a question for Brand, please drop it in the comments. Happy to ask Brand a question. We got about 25 minutes left on this session. But Brand, my question for you, now that you're in the consultant hat, for these technology companies or solution providers that you consult for, what's new for retail that you're like, this is an absolute must have for every single retailer because this technology is just a game changer?
If there were if I were still at Walmart, and that's kind of the way where my head is, that's the way I view all technologies when I'm considering would I talk to this clown if I were still chief of staff, Walmart Asset Protection. Two things: RFID and computer vision. If I only had money for two solutions, it would be those two. For different reasons, of course, but 1 + 1 = 3 in that equation. Because with few limitations, computer vision can include providing text on what it sees. It can take visual and turn it into text. I have a couple of companies, one is Israeli and another one German, that are already in that space where they can, if you have a camera, it can generate behavior changes or alerts for execution in the back of the store via text to the person's phone, say, hey, we just saw you move 3 cases without a brace or a back belt. Here's the training material. It does that automatically. Behavior prediction, sweeping thefts. There are a number of companies that are in that space now. But the funny thing is, Taylor, and you probably, well, I'm sure you already know this. There used to be a few cats in the street doing that. It's not all that uncommon anymore. If you're in AI and you're in computer vision, you can probably do that.
Yeah.
The one technology that I am cautiously optimistic is holograms, and probably going to Europe, back to Europe later this fall with a startup hologram company. You know what a hologram is. You go into an airport and it's a 3D image of a person coming from the ceiling and it answers questions. Where's my flight? What gate? What's for lunch? Marketing, some of your higher end, Apple uses holograms in some of their digital advertising. And the concept is number one, virtual customer service. So back to my point about the anemic staffing in a store, augment those typically high service areas. So in Walmart or any major retailer, that would be cosmetics, HVA, jewelry, and electronics. Typically, that's where you get most of the asks or requests for customer service. Why would you not want a hologram? So you walk into the department, it recognizes you're there. It's almost like Star Trek from the 60s. You see the pixelation, and all of a sudden you got a 3D image life size of a person. Through generative AI or AI, it can hold a limited conversation. You can say, well, of the 987 SKUs of freaking toothpaste, where the hell is mint flavored Crest?
Yeah.
And they could answer that. Secondarily, and really my motivation to that is theft deterrence. So if I am able to see that Taylor went in and stuck his hand behind all the Crest white strips and cleaned off the whole shelf, that isn't normal. Real-time alert, hologram could appear, engage with that customer however the retailer wants to do it. Probably not, hey, you son of a bitch, X, Y, and Z. It'd be, I saw you took 86 boxes. Can I get you more from the back room? Theft deterrence being the headline. So long answer to RFID for item specificity and understanding exactly how shrink happens, because right now no retailer definitively knows, not even Walmart. And computer vision. If I only had a check to write for two, that'd be it.
Well, RFID is, I think, a must-have. A lot of casinos put that in chips now, and a lot of the ones in Vegas, which is a great
Yep.
idea. And then your second point about hologram computer vision, yeah, 100%. The hologram concept is interesting, Brand. I'm sure you watched the intro video before we went live. Scott McCartney, who's the head of facility safety and security for FIFA, the World Cup 2026, he's leading that initiative next year. And he always makes the comment, like, if people would just look up from their phone, these nefarious actors wouldn't be, doing what they do half the time. And part of that is just, we're so technology driven in a technology world that, maybe there was someone having a bad day and they're thinking about causing harm to a retailer or a school. But if Brand confronted that person and just said, hey, how's your day? Hey, great
Yep.
outfit today. Or, hey, beautiful weather. Like, that initial conversation for them to look up kind of will change the whole dynamic of that person's feeling. That's what Scott was alluding to, was if we would just be more involved and more engaged in human interaction versus on our cell phone, we might be able to reduce some of those elements of crime and incidents
Sure.
and safety and security.
No question. That's right. No question.
So it's an interesting concept when it comes to that. So I want to remind my listeners, if you have a question for Brand, please drop it in the chat. We got about 15 minutes left here on the session. Brand, another question that comes to my mind when it comes to the internal approving process of technology, because your earlier point about, we put technology at XYZ store, but we don't put it at the rest of the 500 stores. Well, the common rebuttal there is, I don't have funding for all my stores, Brand. So we talk about this internal approval or funding process. Like, is it working with other departments that have capital that can afford these expenses? Is it legislation? Is it what is the counsel to say, okay, we need this technology, but as a tier 1 or tier 2 retailer, what's my business case to build internally to make sure I do fully adopt it for all my retail locations?
Yeah, the Achilles heel of that in the risk mitigation space is quantifying your problem. So how do you know you're going to have an incident of active shooting, which will cost you $50-75 million when it's all done? How do you know ORC is going to hit? How do you know somebody's going to slip on a floor and cost you $5 million for some bullshit claim that is not true?
Right.
The business that we're in risk mitigation is it's extremely difficult to quantify the risk. So there are a lot of estimations, and that was part of what my group did, my analytics team, and they were damn good at it. But at the end of the day, it's not a swag, but it's pretty sophisticated estimation. So you come up with a defensible ROI. And there are trade journals out there that you get. There used to be the National Retail Security Survey. We used that for years, go off industry data. But at the end of the day, we don't know of every dollar in shrink. I'll pick on that. For every dollar in shrink, a lot of more traditional thinkers will tell you 70% of that was stolen. I call bullshit. I have since 1995. That is not true.
Yeah.
In an aggregate number at retail. There's so much else going on, so many gaps in the operational process that are not being considered. So quantifying the problem is hard. Secondarily, it is completely at the mercy of the leader requesting that capital. So let me put my blue badge back on. I had to go to Capital Committee and request it. And within literally less than a minute, articulate to the executive team the quantification, the risk, and what is the cost of not doing it. Just basic finance stuff. But at the end of the day, they have a finite amount of money. I mean, even Walmart, there's only so much capital to go around. And so things get prioritized. Once you're able to successfully do that, the challenge then becomes, and I heard it a million times, well, X, Y, and Z solution's too expensive. If I'm put that in 5,000 stores, that's $50 million a year.
Yep.
I'm like, true. And you're going to pay $300 million a year in what you don't put surveillance on. So would you spend 50 million to pull back 250 million? Elementary math says yes. But it's, believe it or not, that's a real pushback. It's too expensive. I'm like, compared to what? Because shrink's a real number, even though you don't know how it happened. It's a real number that hits the P&L. Shit is missing. Safety. Every retailer knows exactly how much they pay out in claims. So if there's a computer vision technology available, which there is, that can detect spills, for example, on a floor in real time, report at X, Y, and Z, why the hell wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
And it's frustrating that in many cases, talking to the retailer, it's like, hey, that's too expensive. I'm like, well, I don't know what you pay in accidents, but I'm pretty damn sure this is cheaper.
Well, that's my counsel for manufacturers and vendors is you build a business case around the workplace safety element, but also the attrition rates too, and say, look, what's your average customer cost or volume of traffic coming into your store? How long are your employees typically staying in your environment? Maybe build a business case around that versus just a shrinkage element. And maybe that will open up the eyes and hopefully the checkbooks to a larger purchase. Because sometimes, and you know this, Brand, it's all about education, man. You're speaking with multiple stakeholders sometimes. One
That's
stakeholder
right.
gets it, but you're trying to convince another stakeholder and they're pushing back. And so
Yep.
you're always playing that bureaucracy game internally to make sure that people are on the same page. Because you're right, man, a $50 million expense when it could really be a 300 million plus expense is just a drop in the bucket at the end of the day, right?
But sometimes you lose that battle, and I'm like, that makes
100%.
no freaking sense. I
Yeah.
don't understand how that makes sense, but you're not getting the money.
Yeah.
Okay. Keep
And
writing the big checks.
I've been pushing put access control on every single classroom inside a school district just in case an active aggressor
Yep.
comes. Why wouldn't you be able to lock down a classroom if an active shooter happens?
Yep.
Why? But again, that comes back to the education element. Well, it's too much money, or we have
Yep.
1,000 doors, or whatever it may be. So it's we're preaching in a choir here. But I do want to highlight this comment again from our man Josh. He says. Actually, I skipped one. It's this one right here. Before I do that one, hopefully you did not speak to this and I missed it, but do you feel like mobile security trailers are having a net positive effect? I see them everywhere now. Are they working? And I guess my counsel or my comment here on the mobile security element, it's just a deterrent half the time. And that can be a good deterrent or it can be a bad deterrent from my perspective, because if I see a mobile security trailer at a retailer or a casino, my mind, maybe that's just me, but my mind says, well, this store's got problems. This store has issues. Or it could be, oh, this store is
Yep.
trying to be proactive and ahead of it. But again, my comment there is those deterrent trailers is simply a deterrent at the end of the day, unless it's being monitored by a third party or internally, or maybe law enforcement has access to it. But what are your comments on MSUs and trailers at stores, Brandon?
Yeah. So for trailer, I'm assuming we're talking like LVT, CCTV towers.
LVT has got trailers. I know Flock's got trailers. There's 1,000 trailers companies out there.
Yeah.
That provide.
I mean, with the right data, and data is available, crime index data, CAP index is one of the indices that we use frequently in retail, and that's federally and locally fed crime data. That's not us. And then we throw our shit into the blender, and then we come up with a risk index, and it helps you tier. These are max risk stores, these are high risk, medium, and low. And that's defensible. You go to court with that and you're getting the duty of care pushed back on you. Like, hang on, here's my methodology to say I needed it in Rogers, Arkansas, but I didn't need it in Bentonville. And if that calculation is behind it, you're in a different ballpark at that point. So, yes, they do matter. If for no other reason, it keeps the honest guy honest. I mean, if you're some crackhead and you're an ORC ring, you don't give a shit. You could have a SWAT team in that store. They don't care. That's what's going to happen. But if they put those in there, to me, as a retailer, I'm more interested in post-event intelligence than I am putting at risk associates who do not have that responsibility of intervening and preventing that from happening. So if I have analytics on the camera and I have that behavior analysis, I can tell things and I can learn about stuff, and it makes us better in our defensive belt of safety and security with the intelligence. So if it's not networked with the store's network and it doesn't have some sort of a SaaS solution sitting on it telling you something, I guess it's better than nothing. I hate to say it that way, but if you've got the Intel layer and SaaS, yeah, you're cooking with bacon.
Well, I know we're picking on retail a lot, but it's the same philosophy on other vertical markets. Brand. Some people are still using analog cameras, man. They don't have smart
Oh yeah, yeah,
AI cameras, So
yeah,
it's like, dude, you can't convert to an IP camera today in 2025. No, I'm gonna run my analog camera I've had for fucking 20 years.
yep.
It's mind-boggling. Another comment from Josh. This was the one earlier I brought up. If you have time, also curious if you feel NFPA 3000 is going far enough to address the unique concerns of retail locations. Any comments, sir? Thanks there, Brent.
Give me some context on NFPA 3000.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that either, Josh. And maybe you can drop a comment while we wait. I'm not also. I could probably look it up real quick. I don't know what.
Yeah.
NF,
Hopefully it's not a oh duh, but I'm not familiar with that. So yeah, if in the next couple of seconds he could pop that in.
But yeah, no, I mean, I agree. There's a lot of trailer companies out there. Obviously, there's players out there that are still running analog cameras, and also brand access control. Man, people are still running like key fobs or actual physical keys. I don't know about retail, but schools are still using physical keys to open up a fucking door. It's like,
Yeah.
dude, what are you doing?
Yep. Yeah, it's a psychology of safety, and some of that blame goes on the executive in charge with that, who is supposed to be the champion of getting all that changed. And if that person is more traditional thinker, retired law enforcement or whatever, that's one answer. But if it's a more business-minded person who can articulate risk, just like you do inside of an insurance company, nobody's better at calculating risk and hedging bets than insurance. What the hell's the actuators? That's what they do for a living. So they can tell you it's what's called second order thinking. Say, dude, if I don't do this, here's what could go wrong. And if you're that law enforcement minded guy that's not really good at that, that's probably the 1980 badge reader you're seeing on the door.
Yeah, right. No, you're right. Josh has commented active shooter hostile event response standard. That's what Asher stands for.
Yeah. So is that what's the acronym? Run, hide, fight. I'm assuming that's because that's pretty normal across retail. That is the standard active shooter response. Is that? Let me read that.
He also says intention is to align tech policies and response across the end user and first responder and help identify high risk locations.
Yeah.
For that. I mean,
that's different. Yeah, that's very different. That to me is the computer vision solution, and we probably shouldn't mention providers, but there are those out there that are damn good at it, and there are others that want to be. But the technologies are out there. There's the gunshot detection that all that tells you is somebody fired a damn gun. That's okay if you don't have CCTV.
Yeah. To your point, I want to point that out because a lot of people think that's a solution. It is a solution, but only if you don't have CCTV, just like you just said, don't have camera coverage.
Yeah, if in a city, for example, you don't have cameras everywhere covering every inch of the city, so you put gunshot detection, and at least you get an audible.
Right.
But in retail or any, a casino, I'd really like to know that some crackhead's out in the parking lot walking in with 3 AKs over his back ahead of time, so I can do lockdown protocols and do rapid SOS or whatever the protocol is and stop that before it happens. So again, to Josh's question, those technologies are out there. It ain't new, but it's incumbent upon the retailer to do their self-assessment of risk and start putting pen to paper on as you just said, Taylor, your highest risk locations and do the right thing by location. But as long as there's math behind it, in my experience, it's defensible. If you just fuck it, we don't need it in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, but we need it in Oklahoma City because, I grew up there and that's the way it is. That probably isn't going to hold water. But if you've got math behind it, crime index numbers and threat assessments, you're probably okay.
I mean, definitely do your research, and I mean that's always a rebuttal I get to is like we're gonna cherry pick the high risk locations, but even like the areas that maybe have really no issues at all, but maybe one Sunday there's an issue, right? So maybe do you look at implementing technology then after that one issue and in the last 180 days? I don't know,
Yep.
but that's typically always a topic of conversation as well. We're wrapping up here on time, Brad. We got a couple minutes left here. Josh comments again, curious if NFPA is similar to fire code, worth reading up on. Yeah.
Send me that link. I think I know where he's going, and I didn't answer his question in that context. So I'd like to shoot that to me on email or whatever after we get off the call.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. Josh put the link in the chat, so I'll share that after the thing. But Brand, since we're at the top of the hour, my friend, I guess any final recommendations of advice or counsel for retail or asset protection, ORC in general, maybe things on 2025 that you're seeing, solutions you're using, or things that just retailers need to be doing this year in 2025?
Yeah, real quick, to my earlier point about technologies are readily available. The one point I missed mentioning is the rest of retail, the retail operations probably already looking at it. Computer vision for inventory management, already doing it. RFID for supply chain, been doing it. It's, in my mind, an easy step. So unless you're no longer the one guy saying, hey, I need cops at the door. Well, nobody else gives a shit whether you have them there or not. You're the only guy asking. But if computer vision's already in the lab at Target Corporate and they're starting to roll that out for some other use case, why not jump on the bandwagon and say, hey, here's the potential ROI if I have it at the front doors or in the high service department. So those silos, and again, you're going to read that in the article later in June, they're really coming down fast, where businesses are retail at least is no longer siloed. You're not one-trick pony solutions. You've got solutions that can do a whole host of things, and it's computer vision, AI being the granddaddy, and RFID. There's too many business cases to ignore it. So we got to dust off the checkbook and start looking at more innovative solutions, or you're not going to be able to compete. You'll be Walgreens with all merchandise locked up, and you ain't going to sell shit because I'm going to order it online.
That's just a big inconvenience, man. We see shit locked up, dude. It's just a nightmare. Logistical nightmare, too. It's just, good Lord. Brand, if people want more information or get in contact with you, what's the best way to do that, my friend?
LinkedIn, all my contact info's there, my email, cell phone, and I'm on LinkedIn a lot, so that's the best way. I'm not on any other social media.
All right, well, Brand, the opportunity to speak with you today was pleasure's all mine, my friend. Really appreciate you spending some time with me today this last hour.
Appreciate being asked.
All right, guys and girls, thank you for your questions, for tuning in on SVIP Live. Next week, we'll be going to the education sector and sitting down with my one of my friends for a great school district in Florida. So we're going to be doing that next week. But you guys want more information about SVIP, you guys can subscribe to SVIP on this link that you see right in front of you. And you guys stay tuned for our next guest. Brand, thank you again, my friend. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
See ya.